Tell us who's on the show tonight.
Well, this week I talked with an actor who was turned down for a role because he didn't look Canadian enough, Bruno Gerussi. Also a choreographer who's responsible for many BC dancers finding work all over the world, Jack Card.
Nice guy. Also, I get to talk with the very quiet Dan McLeod about his not-so-quiet life as editor of the Georgia Straight. Also, the 1981 Juno Group of the Year, Prism, have reappeared, and we'll tell the tale with Lindsay Mitchell and Rocket Norton.
But first, a two-time inductee to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame.
There have been very few sports legends like Anest Stukas. He quarterbacked the Toronto Argonauts from 1935 to 41 and took them to 2 Grey Cups. Along with his 2 brothers, he terrorized Toronto football. At the same time, he was writing a sports column for the Toronto Star. So for a time, Stukus, the sports writer, wrote about Stukus, the football player. He was general manager of the Vancouver Canucks of the Western Hockey League, of the Winnipeg Jets of the WHA, and he organized and coached the Edmonton Eskimos in 1949. He created and coached the BC Lions in 1953, and he was named to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame twice. In honor of Annis Stukus, the CFL Coach of the Year award is named after him. In the beginning, though, when Stuk was a kid, his father wanted none of this legend stuff.
I remember as a kid, my father said, "I don't want you playing football." I didn't raise kids to act like young bulls out there because I'd come home with too many bleeding noses, too many seats of the pants ripped out of my pants, and one thing or another. But my dad used to go to work at 3 o'clock, and we used to, 1 year of high school football that we played was at 4 o'clock. So I had no problems. He thought I was the clumsiest damn kid growing up because I explained the bruises. I fell downstairs, I ran into a door, I got into a fight with a kid at school, and one day we were last game of the season near our neighborhood, and I'm prancing around the sidelines looking over the scenery, and who's standing on the sidelines? My dad.
Let me get this right now. You also were the first guy to initiate stats, the first color commentator with John Esau. The first national game was yours.
Oh, no, wait a minute. The first color commentator was with Bill Stevenson back in 1956. Terry, we and Bill Stevenson and I invented play-by-play in color. If you, well, you're too young to remember that far back, you know. But in the days when Dizzy Dean and Red Barber and all these, Foster Hewitt, those guys, always a play-by-play guy by himself. Nobody ever thought. So after I left the BC Lions and went to work for the Vancouver Sun, I used to do a little pregame stuff with Bill Stevenson, halftime, who was, WX had the rights in those days. And I suggested to Bill, what if I sat with you and watched the game and explained why things were happening the way they were? After all, I'm a coach, I'm a player, I'm a quarterback. I know why those things are happening. It's a hell of an idea, so we tried it. The next thing we knew, we're getting phone calls from all over the continent. What the heck is this gimmick you guys are coming up? Should have taken a patent on it.
You were the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks in the Western Hockey League, general manager of the Winnipeg Jets
Well, Terry, as I told you, I was a good athlete, and I had a choice. I remember Connie Smythe used to kid me. He said, "Hey, Stuk, I can't figure out, big, strong, intelligent guy like you, you took football instead of hockey."
Oh.
I said, there was no problem, Major. There wasn't much money in either one. But in your game, they give you a stick. And then they penalize you for using it. In our game, the good Lord gives you knees, elbows, and the forehead. You make all-star using them, and there's no complaint. So I had no problem turning over.
The CFL is having problems selling their game. So what can they learn from years past that they could apply to the game now?
Go back, give it back to the fans. First of all, the major problem right now is the tickets are too expensive. No two ways about it. Yet we're in the catch-22. You know, you got to charge to pay these players what they're getting. Right now, we used to sell it that this is your team. It was our team. The BC Lions were our team. All of a sudden, it's become their team, whoever they are. It's their team, and you haven't got the fans' association with it. See, the big thing, it's okay to develop football players, but boy, it's more important to develop fans.
For over 30 years, Jack Card has been one of Vancouver's hardest working choreographers. Jack's dance company performed at the Cave Supper Club during its heyday, and later at Izzy's, the club he eventually inherited from owner Izzy Walters. He's staged Las Vegas main room production shows. He's worked with countless performers like stripper Gypsy Rose Lee and 40s glamour girl Betty Grable. In the 1960s at the CBC, he worked on the last few of the Some of Those Days shows with Barney Potts and the gang, and on the series Nice and Easy. But every choreographer was once a dancer.
I started dancing when I was this high, but yes, I had a very bad accident when I was about 14 or 15, and it sort of stopped anything in that area. But I started as soon as I was well enough to get back into the studio. I started my studying and training and kept going.
So you just started taking lessons when you were pretty young?
Yes, yes, I did.
What was your first job?
Professionally, that was at the Palomar Supper Club. I was 18, and I think I mentioned that I'm still waiting to get paid from that job. That was a long time ago.
There's things in the city were great in those days. There were places for dancers to dance in those days.
Well, sure. There were the Cave Supper Club had a big chorus line. The Izzy Supper Club opened a few years later. It had a big production unit. There were big shows constantly being held at the Commodore, and we were doing club dates on the roof of the Hotel Vancouver. Sometimes we would do 3, 4 club dates between shows at the Cave in 1 week. There was show business all over the place. The old Pantages Theater, the Lyric Theater, the Orpheum Theater. There was always work.
And then television came along.
Television came along. It lowered the work in some areas, but it created an entire new area for singers and dancers to develop.
Don't be so aggravating, my blushing Rosie, my posy sweet.
Jack, you spent most of your time as a choreographer on Some of Those Days, but I heard about one story where you actually had to dance on Some of Those Days.
I lost a bet with Elie Savoie, the producer, and he said, if you're wrong, you've got to do a 3-minute segment, and I was wrong.
When did you decide that you were going to be a choreographer instead of actually dancing?
Well, I used to argue with my teacher, who was a wonderful lady called Grace McDonald. And she would choreograph something for me and the girls and boys, and I'd turn around and say, I don't like this, how about this? So she said to me one day, she said, you know, maybe you should go in for teaching. And I said, teaching is boring for me. I'd rather design. And I didn't do it right away. I started staging shows at the old George Auditorium and working along with her as she was choreographing, and I developed that way.
You ever thought of opening a supper club here in Vancouver in this era? Do you think it would work now?
I'd like to see a showroom in Vancouver that could accommodate a proper show, like an MGM Grand or a Broadway show or even an ice show on stage. Plus name acts, something that isn't limiting itself to a little tiny stage without the proper backstage facilities and the flying area and the hydraulics. It has to have all that built in.
You think that'd work in Vancouver?
Sure, we're a big city now. And if you give something to the people that's so flamboyant, I'm sure that they would turn out to see it. I've been very lucky. I cannot complain about my career. I've been lucky.
By the way, Jack hopes to write a book about all his crazy experiences in showbiz.
I like him.
Yeah.
And the legendary Stuk continues to do sports at Sea Fun. Up next, editor Dan McLeod and beachcomber Bruno Gerussi.